we're finally on time. Isn't that so exciting? I just want to say hello to some of our regulars. We've got Steven, hello, and Jen, Miguel, Diego, and Skylar. And AW, it'd be cool to know what your name is. So what up, AW? We have one of the best podcast YouTube live co-hosts that there possibly could be. Just so you guys know, getting an appraiser to do a live show is like, I don't know, finding a Yeti. It's like very impossible. They're super busy. They hate talking to loan officers. But Jay Josephs is quite possibly the best, literal best appraiser I've ever worked with. And I've been in mortgages now 19 years. I think he's the gold standard in terms of opinion and structure. I mean, he is... Wow. I mean, I really honestly can't say enough good things because you've educated a lot of our real estate population here. You're very reasonable. He owned one of the best appraisal management companies and appraisal companies there was in the Valley before, everything changed with the recession. So, I mean, honestly, you really are great.
Oh, thanks, Lizzie. This means so much.
My hope is that we can all ask him really great questions because I think appraisal processes are just not well understood. I think there's lots of misconceptions, which I brought with me today that I want to kind of uncover. And I also think it's a point of stress for most clients. So once they get past the appraisal process, things actually get a lot easier. It's not totally smooth sailing, but I mean, it's the pinnacle of stress within a real estate transaction. And then a lot of these clients are first-time home buyers, so they don't necessarily know what happens if the home doesn't come in at value. And those are things that I will talk about. And then he will, some of the things I think we can come out here is like, what do you do if the home doesn't appraise or if you get a bad appraisal or things of that nature? So it would be super awesome, guys. We have 22 people on the live to let us know where you're tuning in from. And then Miss Shadow Lima, just hello. Or Shadow Llama. God, guys, just so you know, it's like a little bit hard for me to read from this distance. Clearly, homegirl needs glasses. But so if I butcher your name, not personal, lots of love, okay? So, and then also, guys, just so you guys know, just to give you an update on interest rates, because you're going to hear all kinds of crazy things. Last week was an awesome week for rates. Many lenders priced out their best pricing of literally the summer. Wow. Today was bananas. Literally, I woke up this morning with negative price alerts. So today was not a great day to lock. We lost about 30 basis points in the market, which to you guys translates to 0.25% or maybe more, depending on the lender. So just know that it's not looking great for floating. So if you are thinking of locking in your interest rates, you should definitely talk to your loan officer. Awesome. Oh my goodness. Greg Bernstein is on this live, guys. What? I just have to tell you, this man had a baby today, most likely. Congratulations. We are so excited. Tuning in from the delivery room. Oh my goodness. You are so amazing.
Way to go, Greg.
Way to go, Greg. We also have Amber. Hey, Amber. Wayne, Debbie, KCH, Abner, Carlos. Let's see. Very cool. Jay. Love it. Oh, Darren, I did get your email. Loved it. Such an awesome story. I promise you I haven't responded because I really want to send you an intentional response and not just a, hey, I received this. But love your story. He's actually one of the funniest people.
He is?
On this live. Very
yes. Good.
And I also thought about you today as I washed my hair yesterday. I'm like, I wonder if Darren's going to comment on the fact that I'm not in a bun. We got Debbie Jennings. Oh, Chi. Hey, dude. He was in my class yesterday, so welcome. Love it. Okay, so super fun to see people that I know and recognize on this live today. So, yay.
I like this. This is kind of fun. You're right.
It is super fun.
Okay.
It's like all my pen pals, kind of. I don't know how to describe.
Very cool. All right.
Yay. Alrighty. So do you have any opening words? You don't have to. I get this is intimidating.
It's fine. I just want to make sure everyone knows how, your your position in the world. I don't know if everybody knows. Do you guys all know that she's top 5 in the nation women loan officers or something like that? Isn't that true?
Uh, okay, so yes. So fun fact is I used to be the number one female loan officer for like the last 4 years, and then I got kicked off my throne this year. So it's like so
But
sad.
that's spectacular. And then I would also assume in the market that we're in, you male or female, it doesn't matter. You have to be one of the top producers in this state.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
But here's what I think is so spectacular about that. Your success is super impressive, but to me what's more impressive is how you call and fight for every deal. Like, I think normally somebody that has your output is having their minions do all the work. But my phone's blowing up with Lizzie appraisal calls, and I keep thinking, when am I going to talk to her assistant or assistant's assistant? And I just think it's really impressive that you own these files. They're your files, and you work them and fight for your clients every step of the way. And that's really impressive to me.
Thank you very much. That's very, very kind. These people are amazing, and hopefully you guys do know, and it's why you're tuning in for value today. So thank you guys. Thank you, Jay.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we have some questions to start with, and then we're going to start digging into some appraisal myths. So AW says, what are our thoughts on government plans on helping with student loans, first-time homebuyers in response to nationwide affordability? Would that push markets up further? So here's the deal. You can already tell that there's administration changes in terms of financing. Biden just announced a new FHFA, it's like the hardest thing for me to say ever, director, which governs the conservatorship over Fannie and Freddie. And they've already said that affordability in housing is going to be their number one priority. So I do expect more leniency in terms of affordability. Conventional loan guidelines, though, are already very flexible. On a Fannie Mae loan, if you're on an income-based repayment plan, you can use that. And also, if you're qualifying on Freddie Mac, they use 0.5% if you're on deferment. So, I mean, in general, that's pretty flexible. FHA just made some major changes, guys, and I recorded a video on that if you guys want to tune into that. They've now just said whatever your payment of record is, or 0.5%, and that's really going to help a lot of people with that. So that's all I know so far. I'll let you know if the government decides to forgive everyone's student loans, because that would definitely help with affordability, but it hasn't happened yet. Stephen, yes, it is going to be a fun ride. Glad plot twist. I turned out to be more interesting than I thought. Thank you, Amber. Hey, Darren. Danielle, girl, I love you. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's late your time, means the world to me. Elizabeth said, in Texas, found you from Javier's channel. Your hair looks great. Thank you. Love the color. Have you made a video on your career as a loan officer and tips for anyone wanting to go into that career? There's a video on my channel called Goals is for Losers. That is a lot about my journey as a loan officer. And it's not that I think goals are for losers, but I think people with goals rarely accomplish them, and people with plans do. And so if you want to tune into that, if you're a newer loan officer, that's a great place to start. Okay. And hey, Rajani. Hey, girl. All right, Miguel says, how different are new construction appraisals compared to resale homes?
One for me, finally.
Yay.
So new construction, our process is different. Generally, we start at the sales office if it's a tract home, and we want to be equipped with the best data that the sales office provides us.
So what does that data look like? Because they don't really know.
Well, so different builders provide us with different things, but most of the bigger builders will give us a summary of a contract. And they'll say, and what I want to know is, I want to know what the base price is. I want to know the options, what they cost.
And those are like your upgrades for the improvements to flooring, paint, cabinets.
Right. And any discounts I want to know. And then I'll compare base prices so I can see how their pricing model has increased over time. That helps me decide appreciation adjustments. So I want to be armed with the best data from the sales office, usually a couple closed sales and maybe a couple under contracts. Then the goal is hopefully to find a competing builder or two and add that, and then maybe a resale. So it's a different focus because I'm spending a lot of time at sales offices as opposed to just looking for resale data.
And also, just on a lending perspective, guys, appraisals are ordered at a much later date, right? So on a resale, in this market, we're trying to order them right away, sometimes before your inspection period, because they're taking a long time,
True.
like 2 to 3 weeks is pretty common in this market. And you want to really wait till construction has started on your home and at least the cabinetry is in. That's a pretty good idea of like when you should order an appraisal, just in case you guys are in a new home build. And the reason that we do that is because more data is available at that time. So more homes have sold, your house is built, they have way more information to go on. And I do want to ask you something because this is one of the appraisal myths that I got, and a lot of agents use this in appraisal disputes. But do different builders have different quality of building, and do those things impact value?
It's a really good question.
No naming, right? Because we don't want to be sued on this live show, but like.
So potentially yes. And the good appraisers, I would say we focus on the data for our builder because that's apples for apples.
Okay.
And we're fully cognizant of the fact that when we go and use a different builder, we need to see what their price point is versus ours. Because sometimes the quality is generally the same, but the level of finishings that's included in the base price is different. And we need to know that. So that's a tough thing. And the other piggybacking on your earlier point about when to order these appraisals, on new construction, the closings today often are based on contracts that are 6 months old. And so when we are appreciating so fast, that data is dated. So the later you can wait and still feel comfortable that you can close on time, the better, because then you're getting sales with base price increases, and that's what you want. It's a real struggle when you're using a comp that closed yesterday, but it went under contract 6 months ago, and the base price was 18% lower 6 months ago. Those are tough ones.
It totally is. Now, on a resale home, and you're using, so this is the other thing, I often get like a X builder is like not as nice as this builder, and they've given it the same valuation. There should be an upgrade for, I don't know, condition, right? Is that a thing?
Potentially. So quality, I do think there are niche builders that build a better product. And again, I will be nice and not mention names, but yeah, I know when I'm appraising a certain builder that builder is going to command the biggest premium in the market. And so I agree. And the hard thing is quantifying it. You can quantify like with a HERS rating, if you know what a HERS rating is, that's rating houses with a number based on energy efficiency. But otherwise, it's really hard to quantify what makes this builder better than this builder. We just kind of look at the sales, and if this builder's selling at a 10% premium over another builder, then we're going to assume that the quality is at least 10% better.
And guys, not every appraiser does that. Okay, so just so you know, the more educated your realtor, the more educated you are as a consumer on the type of property that you are buying, the more the more information you have to arm your loan officer with disputing your appraisal should it come in low. I will tell you, not every person is going to be proactive like I would be or my team would be. And so sometimes you guys have to advocate for yourselves, just like you do at the doctor's office, right? So just do your research, Google what a HERS report is, understand, what different builders are selling for higher premiums for the same type of house. That should be a good indicator, and then read reviews. Okay.
And don't go crazy on upgrades.
Oh God, it's the worst, guys. So just so you know, that's the number one reason why we see new constructions not appraise. It's literally because people have over improved their house using all of the upgrades. And I promise you, those builder contracts are like, if you over upgraded your house, too bad, too sad, right? They're not there to help you. They're there to sell to you.
Right.
Okay, so Carlos said he's currently in a new build, was hoping to get rid of the PMI at the 2-year mark, assuming house prices stay relatively high. How are prices? Okay, so just so you guys know, the new build appraisal process, we just talked to you about the differences. The appraisal reports are going to be the same as a resale. Yep. What you're really wanting to do is make sure that you can qualify for a conventional loan. And then after 2 years, if you have 25% equity or more in the property, you can request a mortgage insurance termination. They are going to use an appraiser. And again, it's going to work for the bank, right? So make sure that you are prepared and armed with your own comps.
Good advice.
Yeah. I personally, I know I do loans, but I have only refinanced my house once because I plan on living in it for 20 years. And I hate people losing equity when they don't have to.
Right.
Okay. So Javier says, with forbearance going away on 7/31, how long will it take for those houses to actually hit the market? any info about where the majority of these houses will be located in the country. No, unfortunately, that information is not available. I mean, forbearance information is typically protected by credit reports, and so it's protected, so we don't know. But I will tell you that I do not anticipate a flood of houses going on the market, and I do believe that people will list their houses once they don't have a free pass. But generally speaking, a worst case scenario is 6 months after the forbearance ends, is when a foreclosure is done. So and if you want to keep track on them, if you go through your public records, you will look for notice of trustee sales. So again, that's notice of trustee sales.
Right. I agree with you. I think that everyone's gained so much equity over the past year that it just doesn't make sense for people to give their houses back, right?
I know. Well, and the thing is, you and I have worked in this industry, and Arizona is typically hardest hit because we were a very affordable place with lots of investors, lots of second home owners. And so in that regard, we typically have higher exposure, but I haven't really been worried about it. One, because the average length of home ownership is now 13 years per property, and we haven't been loaning out crazily to investors, right? And so one thing that I will tell you, right, because I know that housing crashes, like people want them. Typically people don't purchase during them, right? It's like hypothetically you want there to be a housing crash, but if you found that the market was shifting, typically you'd be too afraid to take the plunge. It's a really like ironic thought process that happens to people. All right, so Charlotte says, my appraisal did not come in at what we were hoping for. This is my day job. We're so close. Is there any way I can challenge this? So I would love for you to just name off the top things that will help in an appraisal dispute. And I'm going to tell you one for sure that does not work, okay? Price per square foot for all the realtors that are tuning in to today does not work, not ever, at all, ever. Okay.
That is so perfect. It's a whole different language. Like, I get it that realtors, when you guys are at parties, you're probably all you talk about is price per square foot. And I understand that sellers and buyers, they need a quick frame of reference. But let's say I do 80 appraisals this month. There will be none that when I'm done, did I go back and say, hey, I wonder what I appraised that on a price per square foot basis. So
it is included in an appraisal report, though, which I think is confusing.
Yeah.
And it is a lot of how, like, when agents are Googling comparables, a lot of the real estate tools use price per square foot. But generally speaking, obviously it's not a tool. We'll talk about what goes into that. But like, what are the things that you would ask somebody to look at if they, because I find that people are like, this is a crap appraisal, or, Yeah,
so this isn't going to help with this question, and I will get to this, answering this question. But first, proactive is way better than reactive, and I say it all the time. And from an appraisal perspective, proactive is providing comps, providing an upgrades list, providing a list of things that have been done to your house over a certain period of time and what the costs are. That's proactive. That's good information for the appraiser to have before he finishes his report. The problem with reactive, which is, hey, go do your thing, appraiser, I'm going to leave you alone, signs his name, sends it to an underwriter. The reality is the appraiser doesn't want to change it. Like, I hate that it's that way, but you've experienced a bunch of times appraisers dig their heels in. They're motivated not to make a change, and there's multiple reasons for it. One is potentially they lose credibility with the appraisal management company or the lender that says, you change your appraisal, that means you made a mistake.
Well, right? And there is risk, right? So like every appraisal gets a score, right? And so there is that fear. But one thing I will tell you, right, because what he's saying that he isn't saying is that when you work with a real professional real estate agent who knows to do their job, who's done the comps, they'll put together an appraisal package of information to help the appraiser do a great job, right? So here's what you should know about the property. Here's the list of upgrades. Here are the most recent sales. Here's how I came up with this offer price. And I will tell you that not every listing agent, especially in this market, is motivated enough to do that because there's another buyer willing to pay more than you did, I promise. Yep. And so it's up to your buyer's agent. And I know that guys like there's a lot of people who think that agents are overpaid and they don't do the good ones are worth every penny. Like, they will save you money and they won't let you overpay, or they'll have you prepared in advance for doing something like that. But it does, like, it's way easier to influence than to change someone's mind.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so nice to be on this with you, because normally I'll be in a room with somebody and they'll be speaking and I don't agree with half of the things they say, and it makes me really uncomfortable. Everything you're saying is right on. In terms of winning an appeal, don't expect to win your appeal. But if you're going to, you need to be armed with better comps. Like, I understand, and I see it all the time where
What is a better comp? So, like,
more
newer.
recent, especially now. It blows my mind that appraisers are using comps sometimes that are 6 and 9 months old. I understand sometimes.
I had one from a year ago.
Really?
Yes, I fixed it, but I was like, dude, you can't use a comp from a year ago.
Yeah, you can, but you don't want to when your markets change so much. It's such a different time. So, better comps meaning closer comps, more recent comps, more similar comps, and explain why they're better. I think the best appeals are the one that says, here's this sale, and here's why it's better than comp 2 in your original report. And here's this sale, and here's why it's better than this. Also, if you can independently verify some things like the condition, if you can talk to the agent, or you've been in that house, that's your neighbor's house, you've been in there, you've been to parties at that house, they green carpet everywhere, it smells bad, whatever it is, like, those are things that you can say that the appraiser probably didn't have that information.
Or, like, specific, so certain things that I have used in the past to help me is like, hey, this was a distress sale, right? These were kids that inherited the house. They just wanted to get rid of it.
Yep.
You know, it's not a traditional sale. They took the first cash offer, right? And so there's that.
Right.
A house that was in terrible condition, right, isn't going to sell that way. Or they sold to a family member, that person got a deal. Like, so those specific things are really helpful. The other thing is, like, there's unique things that you will know about a property, or that your agent should know, or the seller should know about the property, that might also give it additional features. So, like, you know, like energy efficient appliances, like having those things available to an agent. Or this was like interesting, but like people had different kind of sustainable tile in the floor, and it was getting like a tile adjustment versus a wood adjustment. I don't know. But like things like that, they do matter. You're not ever going to get a dollar for dollar equivalent to your upgrades. Okay, so there is that. But knowing that information is super helpful. And then again, having better comps. In this market, another tip is houses are selling all the time and very quickly. And sometimes agents ask us to order appraisals very quickly. You want to make sure that your agent is doing the due diligence and saying, when do these properties actually close escrow, and making sure that the most recent comps that support your purchase price have closed before we go ahead and inspect. So, I mean, just another tip there.
Yeah, totally. Be strategic about when you order. If there's a house that's been pending for a while, call and find out when it's going to close. And if it's advantageous to what you're trying to accomplish, then wait till it closes before you order it.
So I'm going to get to Shadow Llama's question, but also it was on one of the appraisal myths. So a lot of times people do upgrades to their properties, and or they replace things like a roof, or they replace things like an air conditioner, and those things are super expensive.
Yep.
And yet have no real value, or they don't have enough value, right? And so she's specifically talking about a new build. So talk about over upgrading a new build, but I also want to talk about improvements on an already existing house.
So I think that when you're doing new construction, you're kind of relying on the sales office. And one of the questions I think that I would ask is, can you give me an idea what the average buyer is spending on upgrades? Like, because that's your frame of reference. That should be your starting point.
That's a brilliant question. Every single person on this live right now that is in a new construction, that is the question you have to be asking, right? What is the average person spending on upgrades? Period.
Right.
Make sure that they give you that number.
Yeah.
Oh my
If you
God.
say,
Brilliant.
if you're spending $80,000 on upgrades and it's a $800,000 neighborhood, that might be fine. But spending $80,000 on upgrades in a $20,000 upgrade neighborhood is bad, and the odds are that you're going to have an appraisal deficiency.
So things that we see, it's like people over upgrading flooring, upgrading paint, you know. No, I've literally, like the Phoenician plaster, it's like, you don't need that.
Right.
Like,
Don't.
Upgrading, backsplashes, and there's things that you guys do. Landscaping is a huge one, and so not everything gives you dollar for dollar value, even though that's what it costs. So you just have to be really careful. And I don't see new builds. This is an honest thing. I don't see new builds under appraising. Okay, unless the person has literally selected almost every upgrade.
Right.
Every premium upgrade too. Right. Now, I do see this though happen with resales all the time. Like all of the time. In fact, I just had one. Oh, and it killed me. This person spent $50,000 on their remodel. And unfortunately, they remodeled their house with finishes that were very personal, right? So, like an oak cabinet with like a dark granite, which unfortunately was really, really popular back in the early 2000s, but not really the aesthetic of today. Yeah. And so they just spent $50,000 and they literally got a $10,000 adjustment for condition.
Yeah, that's uncomfortable.
So explain that, right? Because people are going to be like, what? Yeah. But I promise you, new cabinets, new countertops, new flooring, I mean, that's what it costs, especially now that lumber and materials are way higher than they should be. Yep. Your remodels are going to cost more, but why didn't it appraise for more? Because it was a recent remodel and I felt bad.
That's tough. So cost and value are not the same thing, and the appraiser is not burdened by what you spend on something. They're burdened to try and figure out what the market reaction is to that thing. And so, I think you're better off going with more mainstream upgrades. I mean, now we see it all the time: plank tile flooring or plank vinyl, quartz counters, white cabinets, and that's just.
Did you just hear that? It's white cabinets, quartz countertops, and the thing is, 5 years from now, it'll be something else.
Right.
The tip is here though is that if your plans are to sell your house within 1 to 2 years, you should be talking to a real estate agent regarding your remodel. And I know it's personal and you have to live there, but upgrades are very personal, one to the neighborhood, and then just in general with styles. You want to pick something out that's going to be more appealing to a wide variety of clients, buyers. So you just want to be really specific on that. And then also, one thing that you actually taught me is that, just because a new roof is expensive, right? It's multiple thousands of dollars. The expectation on an appraisal is that you have a working roof with no leaks. And so, and I've seen appraisers literally give a new roof zero value, which is very upsetting to most people.
I know that.
But is there because I do think a new roof does add more value when somebody's buying.
Yeah. So there's no industry standard in that regard. And so that's one of the tough things.
That's crap, appraisal board. I just want you to know.
It is too bad because one appraiser might say, hey, I'm going to give you value for a new roof, and one may not. But Lizzie, that's great retention, because the truth of the matter is we assume the subject and all comps have working roofs unless we know otherwise, and so it's kind of hard sometimes to make an adjustment for that. Maintenance items don't necessarily bring added value from an appraisal perspective. I don't disagree that they should, and sometimes we look at kind of the whole package, and if it's, okay, the house interior is pretty nice, and it's got a new AC that's 16 SEER now, and we do have a new roof, I think that there's probably some market support for giving value for those things. But it won't surprise me if you get an appraiser that gives no value for that, because we're assuming that the comps sold with roofs that hold water.
100%. And so again, it's why it's super important to provide all of those invoices to your realtor who provides them to the appraiser. I promise you, we're human beings, right? You're a human being. If you got a $14,000 brand new invoice for an a new roof, you're going to think about that.
Yeah, and that's the important point here is the appraiser won't know those things if you don't tell him those things. And so receipts are good, but at the very least, just a document that says, here are all the things we've done. And again, what I find is that appraisers kind of lump them all together and say, boy, it's a new AC, a new roof, a new water heater. Okay, this house is better than most condition-wise, and we are going to make an adjustment. So, but if the appraiser doesn't know about these things, you're not going to get credit for them for sure.
Totally. Okay, guys, so just to recap on that, if you have to dispute your appraisal, you're looking for brand new comps. So the most recent comps that are very similar in square footage to yours. You're going to detail out all of the upgrades to the property. and you're going to want to find comparable sales actually that are within 1 mile radius is preferable. Okay.
Yep.
And then, so anything that you know about the property, any of the other sales, anything that you can do to discount their valuation in terms of like, distress sale, inheritance sale, etc., will be good in your appraisal disputes.
Right.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So one thing, Mark asked if there are any home loans that do not require appraisals, and there are. So just so you know, it's called a property inspection waiver. You typically get them only on conventional loans, and it's only if the automated system says it. Typically, you have to have, high credit scores, very large equity in the property, which means that your loan to value is low, and it doesn't happen all the time. Right. And so typically it's a property that's already in their database, that they already have a general ballpark on value. Now, one thing that often gets misunderstood is that there is an appraisal waiver clause, right? So a contingency in a purchase contract that says if the appraisal does not meet the purchase price, that it can be renegotiated or the buyer has the option to cancel. Okay. And so a lot of realtors are saying, okay, yep, you can move forward. We're just going to waive your appraisal. Okay. If you're getting a home loan, typically you will need an appraisal report, and those things are confusing consumers all the time. So that is your PSA for the day.
Right, but if it's if you're signing a contract that includes an appraisal or a waiver of that clause, you better make sure you have enough money to pay the difference, right?
So yes, so absolutely. And again, you will want to have spoken to your loan officer, and you want to have spoken to your realtor about setting parameters on that. This is why working with a professional, especially in a market like this, it's so bananas, you guys. And every single person and their mother is getting their real estate license right now. And some of them have a lot of common sense, a lot of experience, and some do not. And so I'm an advocate of working with a professional that you can really tell will go to the mat for you. And if they aren't, you got to ask these questions. So yes, definitely be prepared to pay over the appraised value if you are doing an appraisal waiver. All right. So let's see. Hey, Emiliano, nice to see you on this live. Do you have an example of an appraisal package?
Yeah. I mean, do you want me to just say what I would put in a package?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make it kind of quick. I would bring a copy of the purchase contract. Lizzie's going to give us a copy of the contract, but every so often, Lizzie's 8th assistant, Mrs. Counteroffer number 6, or just
didn't happen on my team.
or the appraiser just misses it. It was provided to him, but he misses it, and so he has a misconception of what it's under contract at. You don't want that to happen. I've seen transactions fall apart for that reason.
Ooh, yes.
If you're in a market that's appreciating rapidly, maybe put some data together to illustrate to this appraiser, hey, our market, and I don't mean Maricopa County, I mean Kierland or Arcadia or whatever, provide some data that shows that we're appreciating at 2% a month, because that's a difference maker. You want the appraiser to adjust for time and adjust for appreciation appropriately. So providing data that compels the appraiser to make adjustments makes sense. I'd provide an upgrade list. Help the appraiser tell the story to the underwriter. Tell us all the things that makes this house better than most. I've seen appraisers make adjustments for condition and quality based on that upgrade list. So it matters. It makes a difference. Talked about it earlier. A chronological list of improvements is really important. I would like to know when the roof was replaced and the AC was replaced and the water heater was replaced and when the kitchen was remodeled. Again, it helps me tell my story to an underwriter who's never been in the house. And then comps. Somewhere between 3 and 6, 8, 10 comps. And I think that is an effective appraisal package.
I love that. So great. And then Emiliano, I'll cut that clip for you so you can go back to it later. Javier, I don't know what market you are in, but let me tell you, if you have not bought a house and your agent isn't willing to do these things, get a different agent. And also, if you are in Phoenix and you need a good recommendation, I work with the best. Darren, you're hilarious. I'm glad you like my hair and blouse. I'm glad it meets your approval. Oh, and you reevaluated your real estate sources. I love that I'm number 1. Thank you. Darren, my faves. All right. And then let's see. My realtor tells me no to upgrades when I ask him, should I upgrade something? Obviously, we need more details. But let me tell you, if they're saying no, it's probably because your house is nice enough, right? And so they're just trying to keep you safe from over improving your house.
Yeah. But so I would say on that note, you want to know what the norm is for the neighborhood. And if you're going way above the norm, that's probably not the smartest thing. But bringing up a property to the expectation of the neighborhood is a pretty good idea. The other thing I would say is try and upgrade consistently. What we see way too often is somebody's been saving, and has $20,000 in the bank and they can afford to update the kitchen, but you gotta go across green shag carpet to get to it, or old vinyl floors. And that gets really hard from an appraisal perspective because the appraiser's rating the house overall. And if you've got a remodeled kitchen and dated everything else, what's the rating? Is that average? I don't know what it is, but you tend not to get full value for a remodeled kitchen if everything else around it is not remodeled. So be cognizant of that and try and do things all at once or consistently as you can.
Gosh, guys, that's a really, really, really good point. So just know that first impressions are lasting impressions. It happens with people, but it also happens in the property, right? So if they're walking into the property to green shag carpet and like wallpaper that's rolling off the wall, like that's their first impression of the property. And so one other thing that I always tell people is clean your house before the appraiser goes over. Just clean your house. Take off the clutter, make it presentable. They shouldn't be having to trip over anything. You don't want them to feel uncomfortable because I promise you, whether or not they're trying to be biased, they will feel like ew. And if they feel like ew in your house, let me tell you, it's going to impact your value.
Yeah, I think, and I've evolved on this because normally when somebody calls me and says, do I need to clean up? I'm like, and make my bed, I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't matter at all. But it probably does. And I think that the right approach is to treat your meeting with the appraiser like you were meeting a buyer, a potential buyer. You want to put your best foot forward.
Your future in-laws.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I think that'll be helpful.
Yes. Okay, so let's see here. How much in value for upgrades on a flip? An upgrade's done within 90 days, right? Like normally what I see is new flooring, paint, you know.
I know. I can picture in my head every flip I've ever seen, and
they all look the same, white cabinets.
Yeah, and I think right now that works. Yeah. I think that formula works. The quartz, the white cabinets, the plank tile floors are vinyl. There's some nice vinyl floors now. Mm-hmm. I think those are fine. I think that where you need to kind of make decisions is that are based on the neighborhood. Do I spend the money on soft close cabinets? Or do I go with cheaper cabinets? It depends on the neighborhood. If you're doing a nice remodel in a high-end neighborhood like Arcadia or Paradise Valley, you better put in soft close cabinets, right? Or, what kind of, are you doing a built-in fridge, or what's your appliance package? Like, just pay attention to the neighborhood. And if you're in a $300,000 neighborhood, you can just do the low-end appliances. But what people see is a trigger point for the things that they can't see. And so if I go to a house that's a brand new fix and flip remodel, one of the first things I would do is open the cabinet doors. And if they're not soft close, in my head, I think that they've done everything cheaply. And I feel like, okay, I'm going to buy this house, and in 6 months, things are going to be falling off the wall. So I wouldn't care if I was a buyer in a $300,000 price range, but if I'm an $800,000 price range or $1 million price range, the things that I can see are going to give me confidence about the things I can't see.
So one thing that I want to say that maybe Jay didn't say, this is again why it's so important, Debbie, to provide the appraiser with the costs of all of the improvements, because like he just said, he just assumes the whole remodel is cheap if the cabinet shuts crappily. Right. And so, like, here's the deal, guys. Like, it matters, right? Like, that just, like, he doesn't know that he has a bias. No one, like, buyers have biases, right? So you just have to make sure that you are very preparing them for appraising the property to what you paid, you know? And then how much value I put in, I think we beat that dead horse. So Debbie, lots of value to an appraisal package. I did see that Greg wanted you to elaborate on how difficult it is to appraise a house in a market that's appreciating like daily.
Yeah, so one of the main flaws of appraising is we're using historic data to say what a house is worth today. And that's not so problematic when you're in a flat market. or you're in a modest appreciation where it's historical levels of 0.5% a month. But what we've seen over the last 14 months, in my 30 years, I've never experienced before. Like literally, the average sales price for July, this July, today, is about 42% higher than the average sales price in May of 2020. Like,
Wow.
that's crazy. And so that's the most traumatic part for us as appraisers, is trying to make sure we're giving fair and accurate representation about the appreciation. And the way we do it is with time adjustments. And really quick, let's say we're appreciating at 1% a month, and here's today, and the appraiser is using a house that's closed 3 months ago, went under contract 4 months ago. I, as an appraiser, have a tool called time adjustments, which allows me to make a positive adjustment for the appreciation that occurred after the meeting of the minds date, which is the contract date. So in that scenario, went under or closed 3 months ago, under contract 4 months ago, appreciating at 1% a month, I can make a plus 4% adjustment to that comp to give credit to the appreciation.
And then it's supported by pending sales and listings.
Yeah, the
right?
forward thinking. So that's what you want to see. You want to see the old data support the lowest number, the most recent data support the highest number, but then the pendings look like they even support a higher number than that. That underwriters want to see that we can look forward and still see that rate of appreciation. Because if I'm about to appraise my house at $800,000, but there's a listing next door that's exactly the same house for $775,000, that gives underwriters pauses that, we hit the top and now we're having some correction.
And one thing I want to mention, guys, so that upward trajectory is super important. An important announcement that happened last week regarding conventional loans is I put out an announcement saying that on refinances, they had this adverse market fee of 0.5% that they were tacking on to refinance pricing. That's actually gone away. They no longer consider us to be in
Wait, what is that?
an adverse market. It was just, they didn't want people taking cash out, really.
Oh.
And so they put a penalty on it to try to control it. That's gone away. So if you want to refinance your house right now, I mean, I know I said rates are, not great today. I mean, they're still historically low. It's more affordable now. Okay, so one thing I also want to mention about time adjustments and using pending sales and future sales, how much weight does a pending sale and a listing? Because I always tell people none.
Yeah,
right?
pretty close to none. And one of the hard things now is a lot of times these pending sales are under contract at over list price, right? Mm-hmm. We often won't have that information. So we see the list price of $500,000, but it's actually under contract at $540,000. Mm-hmm. But the appraiser doesn't know that, so they're making their calculations based on $500,000. So
again, important appraisal package.
yeah. If you as a realtor or you as a neighbor know what it's under contract at, that's really useful information for you and for the appraiser to have. So I would say that listings could hurt you more than they can help you. If I'm thinking it's worth $500,000, but I can buy it for $450, principle of substitution says, why is it worth $500 if I can get that same thing for $450? So, but most appraisals you see nowadays will have at least one listing or pending because the underwriter wants to make sure that the music hasn't stopped.
Yep, that the market's going up. Okay, so I had a thought, but then I want to just keep answering questions, then we'll go back to my thought. Okay, so AW, yes, I still talk to clients personally. And I was kind of hoping that she would jump on here, but guys, I met TeamHoeffer. I know who TeamHoeffer is, and she actually closed on her home loan today, and I really wanted to congratulate her on this live, but she's not on yet. So if she hops on, I want her to say hello, and everyone should go and congratulate TeamHoeffer with a console.
Wait, how do you spell two hoes?
Like two hoes. It's hilarious. Okay. All right. So Steven said, neighbor's house sold rather quickly compared to the time mine has been listed. Realistically, the only difference is mine doesn't have a garage. Similar listing price. How much less of an adjustment?
Yeah.
Ugh, guys. And then I'm afraid it might be overpriced.
Well, if it hasn't sold yet, the bad news is it's probably overpriced. The problem with lack of covered parking is the number of buyers diminishes rather significantly. It also depends on the neighborhood and the price point, but there's a segment of buyers. We all want as many buyers as possible to look at our house. But as buyers kind of go through this process of what they want to see and what they don't want to see, often a criteria is, I want a 2-car carport or I want a 2-car garage. So don't show me, realtor, don't bring me anything that doesn't have that. So your house loses buyers, I would assume, because of that reason.
How much more in value, right?
Yeah, that's the hard thing. And if he can elaborate a little bit, like what price range we are, and I don't know if it's in Arizona, but that matters because I get that all the time. What's a pool worth? And what you all need to know
it's like
is
0 to 15,000.
Right, that's true. A pool might be worth $15,000 in one neighborhood, and that exact same pool could be worth $30,000 in another neighborhood and $5,000 in another neighborhood. All the time, the appraiser should be trying to figure out how the typical buyer in the neighborhood where appraising is, how they view that amenity. Okay.
So here's how they calculate that, right? So basically, if house A has no pool, it sells for $300,000, same square footage, same type of finishes, and house B, very similar to house A, has a pool, sells for like $20,000 more than house A, right? The value is $20,000. Just to be simple on that one upgrade, so long as everything else is the same.
That was spectacular. That's perfect. That was a great example. You're absolutely right on that. So we're trying to extract from the market, every appraisal, what a typical buyer is paying for that amenity. So I really need to know price ranges and things like that. It's not uncommon for what I would call an average price home, and in this market that's about $500,000 now, like $10,000 a bay per garage could be more, could be less.
Per bay. So like if you have a single garage, a double garage, a triple garage, I will say that for us, like when I'm looking at appraisals, I typically see somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. Like that's a very common adjustment for that.
Yep. Fair.
Okay, so let's see. Do you look in crawl spaces? This is FHA, you have to, but conventional loans you don't?
I do not. And so that would be another example. If you have upgraded insulation, you want to make sure the appraiser knows that, because if you don't tell me, I'm not going to know, because I don't like looking in attics. I really don't. They scare me a little bit. I don't really know what I'm looking for. I know FHA says I have to look up there, so I do, but I don't know what I'm looking for.
Well, I think the idea is that that's where a lot of like water damage happens.
But
and if you have like insulation, and
you have to go all the way up there and in there, and then I don't want to come out with a bunch of insulation on me.
Well, so FHA really cares about safety hazards.
Yep.
So like we care about the black mold, and we care about broken windows and not being able to escape if there's a fire. And so like things you don't really think about, like termites and lead poisoning. I mean, there's so many different health reasons for why we care about FHA required repairs, which, by the way, can you please elaborate on that? Because I have to tell realtors all the time that they have really gone down. It's basically down to like chipping wood and bars on windows. And otherwise, the health and safety concerns are basically the same on conventional and FHA. Yes,
pretty much, yeah. So for me, the litmus test is typically adverse health and safety. But so I just left one this morning, and it's missing flooring in a couple rooms, and it has damaged wood flooring in another room. It's missing doorknobs on the interior doors. So what I'm going to do in that case is I'm going to give that list to the lender and say, I can do it as is, or I can do it subject to any of these repairs. You tell me. Because I can live with any of them. None of them on their own are adverse health and safety issues. So I want the lender to tell me I can lend on something that doesn't have flooring in one bedroom, or I can't. I don't need to be the decision maker, because I can appraise it as is and discount the value a little bit for the flooring issue, or I can do it subject to them putting flooring in. But I would call Lizzie, and something like that, if that was your deal, I would call you and say, here are the issues, you tell me what you think's important.
And it depends on the type of loan. On a conventional loan, I'm going to tell you a cost to cure, truthfully. And it also depends on the appraiser. So things that they care about, especially when it comes to flooring, guys, is can you trip over it? Okay, so a tripping hazard is important.
Adverse health and safety.
Yep. And can you contract a lime poisoning from your cement, your concrete? So if those two things are apparent, typically it will be asked to be changed. But otherwise, it's just a cost to cure. Like missing doorknobs for me is not anything, so long as you can open the door, we're cool. So that would happen regardless. And I will tell you that, like, you're a very, very well-educated appraiser who's not overly concerned. I've had conventional appraisers, like, ask me for range ovens.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
No,
so
I
like,
do.
so you just also have to work with, again, an educated loan officer, so you know what to discount. But I think that there isn't as big of a gap between an FHA required repair and a conventional required repair.
I agree.
And that's the point I'm trying to drive home.
The chipping paint is probably the main difference, I would say.
Yeah, and that's what I always tell people.
Yep.
Okay, so all right, so let's see. Darren says, how much weight does land have on an appraisal, or is it only about the house? I would say that land has the majority, right?
Land's a big deal. I think it's weird because Fannie Mae, like 5-6 years ago, came out with something that said they thought appraisers were giving too much credit to land. I disagree. I was in a room with 200 agents, and I said, I go, two houses exactly the same. One's on an 18,000 square foot lot. One's on a 13,000 square foot lot. Do your buyers care? Raise your hand if they do. And everyone raised their hand. Like, land value is important.
But it's also location value. And the issue with that is that it actually also interferes with fair housing.
What do you mean?
So, like, land in Arcadia is worth differently than land
For sure.
in, People's Valley.
Yeah, that's totally true. And so there's other things to it. Like, I've appraised houses that are on a mountain, that are on 8 acres on a mountain. But you really can only use about 15,000 square feet of that. So in that regard, there's not as much contributory value to the other 7.5 acres. So it really depends on the neighborhood. It depends on the size of the lot. And again, it's the appraiser's job to be geographically competent in that neighborhood to understand how a typical buyer reacts to additional lot size.
So Darren just got a smoking deal on this like super absurd story to buy a house. Like literally,
Wow.
guys, every possible like thing and most annoying things happened to him on his home buying journey, but he scored big time. He got a house under value in the most crazy market, his dream home. I mean, he's gonna renovate it. He's already started. It's super cool story.
It's amazing. I don't know how you do that in this market. There
Well,
haven't been any good deals.
He lives in Sandwich, Illinois, but even then, everywhere in the market. But like, there's still deals to be had. And one of the things that I do want to point out is that I do think that if you want a deal in this market, it's not without some pain, right? And not as like he has probably the best sense of humor in someone I have met for all the challenges ever. And so like, there's still deals to be had. Congratulations, Darren. And sounds like you got a winner there.
Great.
All right, so let's see. So Carrie says, little off topic, but I'm really scared of all the Airbnbs popping up in my zip code. Any tips on how to fight this? And what are you hearing in the real estate world about these? Okay, guys, I don't love Airbnbs. I think that they are single-handedly making it like more difficult for first-time homebuyers to buy in a market. And I'm not trying to hate, but I also just think that most people are underprepared for being a landlord. And I don't love it. So it's not my favorite type of purchase, just in general, my 2 cents. And I do, so this is nothing to do with Arizona market, but 3 years ago, we went to Iceland, right? And Iceland's like this random country that most people like may or may not have heard of, and they may or may not have wanted to visit. But they were doing this really big campaign to bringing more tourism there. And then all of a sudden, their entire real estate market got bought up with people doing VRBOs and Airbnbs. And then they had a traumatic housing crisis. And it's the first place that got me really thinking about it. And now that we are in a market where first-time homebuyers are being outbid by cash investors, it really pisses me off. So, my soapbox.
It's good. I don't have anything to add. You handled that perfectly.
But, like, do you think they impact value?
Well, I think to some people, so the good thing, in some regards, it's good for value. I have a old fraternity brother of mine who asked me to run comps on a house he was thinking of buying, and the list price was way above what I thought the comps were. And he goes, it doesn't really matter because I've already comped it out and I can rent it for $5,000 a month and that cash flows this, and so I'm fine. And so he was totally willing to pay over market because the pro forma made sense to him. And so in that regard, that's going to close, and that's going to close as the highest comp in that particular neighborhood, which will drive values up.
Okay, so there is that. But also, people don't generally want to live next to lots of Airbnbs.
True.
So in general, if you're in a gated community, if you're in a community with maybe that doesn't have an HOA, your value, I believe, will be impacted if there's a lot of Airbnbs. And I do think that it is going to be something that people research when the market isn't as aggressive as this one is, right? You know, right now, like you could basically sell a pig with lipstick on right now. If you have a shit house right now, now's the time to sell it. But like in general, like I don't think that it will be this competitive. And I do think that people will look at that, and I do think it will impact values. So there.
Yeah, totally could be right. I wouldn't want to live next to an Airbnb.
I don't want to live no, especially if you have kids. I don't know. The
Right.
whole thing freaks me out.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Okay, so you're loving you guys. Jay is awesome, right? He should definitely be my co-host. They loving the co-host vibes.
That's so cool.
Yes. So
But nobody comments on my hair.
No.
Like everyone just says how lovely your hair is.
Well,
Not that
it's
I
because
expected that.
it's been a weird debate. So
Is it a different color or is it the same color? I don't know.
So
I don't know what the deal
I'm
is.
naturally a brunette.
Okay.
I have been a blonde for like more than a decade. And so people have gotten very used to my blonde hair. And then in COVID, I was like, screw this. I'm not wearing a mask for 4 hours to be a blonde. It's not worth it.
Good for you.
Yeah, so now I'm a brunette. And so it's funny.
Looks good.
And
All
it's like I've had to like slowly change all of my marketing.
Oh no, have you really?
Yeah, too
Okay.
funny. Okay, so let's see. Does the cost of material lumber impact appraisals? And then talk about appraisals for multifamilies.
Yeah, so on the lumber cost, I think that short term it's hard to say. Mid-range, long term, I would guess yes. As people's basis in their houses increase and lumber costs are increasing people's basis, and on new construction they're increasing the costs, especially on spec homes and such. So yeah, I think that over time that is impactful. What I don't know, because this is all so new to me, I've never been through anything like this before, I don't know if that could lead to short-term changes or long-term changes, because eventually I would assume the lumber prices will come back down. I think they have to a certain degree. And so you have this little fluctuation, but then if it's back to normal, maybe it's not so impactful long-term to property values. And what was the other thing? Multifamily. What are we talking?
So 2 second things that I want to say about that. So whenever your remodels cost more than what the adjustments will be on your appraisal, that's a good sign that lumber and the cost of materials exceeds what you'll get in an appraisal value. So just right now in the short term, it absolutely is impacting the cost of a house.
Sure.
And guys, again, an appraisal, and I just want to drive this point home, and I don't think we've said it on this live yet, is that an appraisal is what the house is worth yesterday. Market price is what you pay to buy it today, and those things are very different, right? And market price is not based on value, it's based on what people pay, right? So sometimes that's over what it's worth, and sometimes it's under. Like in a regular seller's market, right, you're expecting to pay like, I don't know, 90% of what that list price is. You know, in a typical seller's market, we're talking 97% of what that list price is. We are definitely over 100% right now. And that is just uncommon. So knowing the difference between actual cost and worth is super important. And I hope that you guys got that from this live.
Yeah, good.
All right, so Darren got it because he was buying his property in an estate sale. So he benefited from somebody passing away. And no, I will not mention the silver tsunami. I will not go on that tangent in this call. That's why I was like laughing as I read that. You're so hilarious.
There's like inside jokes everywhere. This is pretty cool. Your relationship with the viewers is
okay,
pretty
but I
amazing.
am going to bring it up. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Okay, so people ask me all of the freaking time when I think the housing market is going to crash. And I'm like, it's not going to be because there's this wave of foreclosures. Sorry, I don't see it happening.
Right. I agree with you.
But if I was going to, pull out my crystal ball, we all know is like, could be total bullshit. There is a large percentage of the population going to like start dying in 10 years. And they own 1 in 3 homes. It's called the silver tsunami.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I get you.
Do you see that impacting home values? From the expert. Okay.
Yeah, so
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Anything that takes buyers out of a market, including death, or anything that leads
large
to increased
percentage
inventory.
of death.
Yes, and increases in inventory, death, estate sales, I would say leads to a less healthy market. So I haven't thought about it, and I would prefer not to think about it. But I guess I can see that. And so just can we talk for a second about what's happening now?
Yeah.
So I run numbers all the time because I'm always doing Zoom calls or presentations. And yesterday we had just over 6,400 active listings in Arizona Regional MLS, which is historically an insanely low number. I think we're used to 20,000.
But one thing I want to note is that back in May, that number was 5,200.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it is up probably 40% in the last 60 days, which in that regard is kind of significant. But the good news is we're not seeing huge increases. We're still at a historically very low number. And this, to me, is a good sign of a soft landing. And that's what I want, and it's what I hope for. The average sales price so far in July, Arizona Regional MLS numbers, is just under $500,000.
Okay.
In June, it was $508,000. In May, it was $505,000. I want everyone to be aware of those numbers because maybe stop the bidding wars right now. But those are good signs of maybe just kind of softly getting back to normal. And I think that's good for us.
Signs of a shifting market. Okay, guys. So here's the thing. We're not even close. We're not even close to it being a buyer's market. I just want you to know, yes, we are shifting.
Yeah.
And when you say 40%, it sounds like a lot. Okay, it does sound like a lot. But like I just want to remind you, right? So because we're going to take it back to basic numbers here. If you have one house for sale and there's 20 people that are interested in your one house, you will have way too much demand for the one house. If it goes down by 50%, 10 people to one house is far too many people for the one house. If it goes down an additional 50%, guys, 5 people to one house is too much. Yeah. It would go down another 50%. 2.5 people is still too many to one house. And so we will still continue to see bidding wars. You will still continue to see people waiving their appraisals and doing all that stuff. Is it shifting? Absolutely. Is it slow? Yes. And the difference between now and the 2000s when we saw the big crash is that we literally increased 40,000 homes for sale within a 12-month period. We're not even on pace, not even to match that. And it took 2 years to burn out the demand, right? So it wasn't until 2007 before we even said, hey guys, I think we've got a problem here, you know?
Yeah, there's the one other thing I want to say about that is my first appraisal this morning, I was meeting a tenant who wanted an appraisal. She was thinking of buying the house from the landlord. And she wanted to know all these numbers. And so we were talking for a while. And I said, look, I want to be clear. Nothing about what I'm telling you should keep you from going forward with this purchase. As long as look, do I think that we could see a 1 or 2% decline in property values? Maybe.
But we're already up 42%.
Well, that's what I mean is it's such a modest number. There's so many healthy aspects of this real estate market. The last crash, we were on a foundation of sand. And we were doomed to fail, and we did.
Why is that?
Because you guys were making bad loans.
We were making bad loans, but also I will tell you guys that was 1% of the total mortgage market. What made the catastrophe happen is that people weren't occupying their homes. It was an inflated demand with investors that weren't occupying, second home vacationers that weren't occupying, that couldn't actually qualify for their properties. Okay, that's what it is. But the real killer, right? That's what started the avalanche. The real killer is actually consumer sentiment. So your neighbor is foreclosing, the neighbor across the street is short selling, your property value is going down and down, and you start to panic. And then you think that it makes a smart idea to do a strategic foreclosure to save your assets. We see this all the time in the stock market. Stocks go down, people pull out their retirement accounts, they lose literally tens of thousands of dollars, and they never recover, right? Just to save. This is called tripping over dollars to save pennies when you panic. And that's what starts this crazy ass snowball, which is why I am so passionate about controlling these fears. Because you guys, the dumbest mistake I ever made was sell the property I bought in 2006 at a loss. I would have doubled my investment just hanging on to it, and I could have afforded it, right? I didn't short sale, I didn't foreclose, but I sold it at a loss thinking that it would never recover. And it pisses me off all the time, Skylar. Just so you know.
Yeah. These numbers wouldn't scare me to not be a buyer.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so let's get back. Sorry. I'm
That's
like
good.
a very passionate
You are
human being.
passionate. And you swear more since you changed your hair color, I think.
I don't. You know what? It's like Lizzie after hours. It's just
Is
like
that what it is?
after the day I've like worn out all of my,
You go, girl.
know. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so we have Racimi. And yes, you guys, sorry, Darren. Sorry, Daniela, my tangents. Okay, when does a lender order an appraisal approximately? And we're closing on 8/14, and I'm a little worried the appraisal has not been done yet. In this market, order right away. Appraisals are taking an absurdly long time, like 2 weeks, guys, is an average turnaround time. And appraisal costs, just so you guys know, they're like market price. So if you want an appraisal back fast, you're going to be paying at minimum $200 over, and it's just kind of all over the place. It's like the wild, wild west when it comes to appraisals, which is why I love to use Apex.
Thank you.
If you're a loan officer on this call, you should demand that your company use them for your appraisals.
Yeah, I think that last I checked, I think in the Phoenix market, we were at like 10 days, which is historically not good. But now in this environment, I'm pretty happy with those numbers.
My husband
that?
just responded. My husband's the best, you guys. Can I just tell you, I love him so much. He's such a good sport. And his team is actually who supports me in hosting these lives, because we all know how tech challenged I am. So thank God I'm married to him. Okay, so let's see. Diana, oh yay, Diana's on this live, guys. She joined me a couple weeks ago. Let's see, Gerald says, will appraisal value and market value ever correlate? If so, when? And should we expect an imbalanced market going forward?
Well, that's a question on your market value conversation. I was lost a little bit on that one.
Okay, so here's the deal. So no, I don't ever think that they correlate, right? So I think that people are always upset in this regard. So what people are willing to pay for a property typically never matches. The only time it matches is, well, actually that's not true. Take that back. It matches all the time, and I do actually have this effing question.
Thank you. You totally came back. I'm
Yep.
happy.
I was like, wait a minute. It's just that normally, guys, it's an opinion of value. So normally what people are willing to pay is either over or under what something is technically worth. However, I find oftentimes that properties that should appraise for higher only meet our contract price, and I would love to know why. Okay. I have an idea. I think that appraisers only appraise it to what, to satisfy the bank. Yes, you can loan on this property at this value, but I don't think it's a true value.
I totally agree. To me, it's discredited our industry. Mm-hmm. Those numbers hitters, and I think our job is to say what it's worth, and not just to justify a purchase price and then walk away. So I hate that about our industry, and I think that I'm the guy, if it's $500,000 contract price and my comps are right around $500,000, I hate to say it, I sometimes will come in at 502 because I don't want people to think I'm the guy who just hits the number. It happens too often. It's not fair. What I think, if we wanted really excellent objective appraisals all the time, we wouldn't ever tell the appraiser what it was under contract at. We tried to take bias out of the appraisal process, and the one single document that impacts appraisals more than anything else is the contract price. So I'd love for, you wouldn't like that because we'd be coming in low probably a lot more, but at least you would not have to worry. You'd be getting an appraiser's true opinion of value.
So yes. However, remember when we said it's easier to influence than it is to change people's minds? As a buyer and a buyer's agent, that's why you want the contract price to be there. No. As the seller, that's what frustrates you, but also only if it's not in your favor. So just so you know, they do this to keep sanity. It's really, it's an opinion of value, guys. Just so you realize, an appraisal is not accurate. You can get...
What did you just say?
It's not... Well, I don't know. It's like the truth isn't really the truth. I guess that's mainly what I mean.
Okay.
You will give me an appraisal on a house, and I can order it from somebody else.
Absolutely.
And they might say his value is supported, but I think it's X, Y, and Z. And this happens often, where I'm required to order multiple appraisals on a property because let's say it's a flip or it has tons of improvements or it's in a high risk area.
Yeah.
And I will literally get appraisals that are $30,000 apart from one another. And I'm like, hello, like this is just like a week apart. Like it's so nuts. It's so crazy.
That's absolutely true. It happens way too often. And again, what I wish the appraisal industry would do would be to get more involved and heavy-handed in mandating, hey, this is how you have to handle certain things. They can't say, here's what the adjustment should be, but this is how every appraiser should handle an addition or a garage conversion or anything like that. But we don't have that.
No, we don't. So quick question about 40-year mortgages are starting to pop up. Yes, I think it's going to start. You'll start seeing them more frequently as, interest rates go up and home values go up. It is a way to make mortgages more affordable. Just so you guys know, though, the longer you pay a mortgage, the more it costs you, the more interest you pay. And typically the higher interest because people who need longer term mortgages typically default. So FYI on that.
Does that happen? Can you really get a 40-year mortgage?
No, they're popping up.
Okay.
I do think that they will come up. Like it's a non-QM thing at the moment.
Okay.
I think 40 and 50-year mortgages will be a thing.
That sounds way too long to pay a mortgage.
I think 30 years is a long time too.
Yeah.
But like you have to account for the cost of inflation. You have to account for people's incomes aren't like at the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Let's see here. All right. So I think we lost our camera. Okay. Oh, you can still hear us? Oh, good. Sorry, guys. The camera went black, but we're not. All right, so there's that. Oh, goodness. Oh, so we're overtime, which meant this is what I mean by my tech challenges, guys. I overtalked this thing, and now we're back. Thanks, Zeke. You're awesome. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap this up. But I did want to acknowledge Javier is on this live. He's the reason I do YouTube altogether. If you guys do not know his channel, which I doubt happened, you guys should go check him out. He has some of the best real estate videos on the market, and you guys absolutely should follow him. Jay, it has been an awesome pleasure to have you on. Like, seriously, probably my best live I've ever done. Like, seriously, best co-host. And guys, and can everyone give Jay just like your best nuggets that you took away from this live so he can feel as honored as I am that he showed up today?
My son just got on. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Hey, Shy. No, this is so cool.
Wow. Thank you for having me. There are few professional and personal relationships I value as much as yours. So thank you. It means a lot to me.
Yes, you guys. See, see, people love you. The content's great. Yes, guys. And we love Kyle. Kyle, Javier's boyfriend. Too funny, guys. Yes, but so many people loved you. You got tons of value from this. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget next week, new live time, 6 p.m.